here.
What's up, everybody? It's your favorite Red Lobster's favorite nerd, and today we are looking at the TFC Seacons together. We're going to be combining them. We're going to be talking about all those ins and outs. But before we do, I'd like to show you what they look like all together. So this is a little glimpse at the whole set, and I think they look good. I don't think they look very flashy. There is something about them that isn't like, you know, it's still a bit dated by today's standards for the most part. But that being said, like it doesn't bother me all that much. I just have to say it because it's how I feel about it. But I think they look good together. I really do, and it does pull at some nostalgic heartstrings seeing them this way. And there they all are in their beast mode or sea monster mode, and I think they look good. It's more green than I remember. Like when I see this set in my mind, it's more kind of green at the end than I normally think about. But I think it looks pretty good, and I think if you wanted to have them displayed in this mode, as long as you position certain ones in certain ways to kind of break that green up, I think you'd be fine. I will say it's not, for the most part, it's not their strengths. It's not the strength of this set, these modes, with the exception of the tentacles. Like most of them are more weaker, a bit weaker in this mode than robot mode or combine mode. Alright, so I had to go ahead and connect the legs off camera. I know I tried to show you guys. They went on easy, but the squid guy, the octopus guy, he just falls apart. He like, because remember the complaints I had about stuff staying tabbed in and stuff? Well, I have those same complaints in trying to combine it. That being said, let's do the arms at least on camera. So we got to move this out of the way, I guess. We'll do this one. Sorry, I apologize for my hands in the way there, or arm in the way, but we got so much space, you know what I mean? He's bulky, you know, so it creates a bit of a problem just getting everything to go on. There we go. And I think see the nice thing about oh, there we go. All right. So that's kind of a bummer. Let me get him cleaned up and we'll take a look at him. Okay, so I hate this proportionately, so I'm gonna add the boots, which he's getting way too big for. Shout out to all my Englishmen. And we'll come back and see if we like that any better. So proportion-wise, I like that a lot better. Now we're going to go through the figure and talk about it. So the head is on a ball joint. It's not a very large ball joint. It does come with a replacement neck piece to move the head forward, but I like it back, so I'm not going to go through the trouble of even trying it. Plus, what do I got to do? Perform surgery with my house MD? You need to relax. Anyway, the head does get a little bit of articulation, a little bit up, little bit down, side to side is fine. Detailing is why I show up. Now there's something else I need to show you, and that's these shoulder pieces. Now these fit into these small grooves here, and I don't know if I'm even going to bother because you can't really see it in robot mode anyway. Yeah, I'm not going to bother, but they fill in those gaps right there, and I would imagine that depending on, because the arms have different clearances depending on which bot you use for the arms, I went for the more traditional, I believe, animation accurate version. I gotta fix his foot, it came out, hold on. This guy has a fair amount of issues too, we'll get there, but waist works fine. Arms, I'm not gonna mess with this arm because I like this head here. You can move the head joint around the same way that we put it in place to get the same exact stuff. So we have a ratcheted joint here for the swivel. That should get you up as far as you want. If you move whatever locking mechanism keeps the arm in place, and you do need this locking mechanism or it'll slip out. I don't know why they didn't design, like, you know, I had to put the arms on from bottom going up. I don't know why they didn't design it so you put it on from up going down. But whatever. You do get the swivel around as well. Now, this is supposed to lock it in place. It does a decent job, but it's not the best. Bicep swivel, double jointed elbow. One uses the thighs, and then the other one uses the built-in joint. So that gets you at least 90 degrees, if not a hair more. Wrist swivel. Thumb is on a ball peg coming out to a hinge at the ball peg and then an additional hinge at the first knuckle. All the fingers are on individual hinges at both the base knuckle, the second and third knuckle. So that should get you everything that you want hand-wise, except for to make the fingers go like this. Otherwise, it's good to go. All right, same for the other side. And you can see the elbow joint works just fine. Let's do the hips. Now, there's something I want to talk about here that's a bit problematic, and that is, let me see if I can, I'm having a hard time seeing what you're seeing. So, I have the kneecaps on that we talked about in the Tentakills review. And the problem with these are that they're in line with the thigh. There's no thigh swivel, so you have to swivel at the feet, or at the foot connection here. And as a result, the foot ends up looking off-center from the kneecaps in order to have it standing in any sort of a dynamic pose, including just a normal A stance. So that's a bit unsightly. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep the knee pads on as a result. But let's talk about the articulation. So, moving the hip flaps out of the way, ratcheted joint here. You get you get a fair bit up. It doesn't hold its weight, but you get a fair bit up and a good bit back, I'm sure, but you don't really need that anyway. But I'll show you for the sake of showing you. Hopefully you can see that. Nope. Back to there. I must have hit this with my shoulder. It's a bit challenging. Forgive me. And then, like I said, the swivel is down here. And it's ratcheted. And then you get the knee joint that gets you 90 degrees at the knee. Now, the feet are actually pretty cool if you can get them to stay plugged in. Now, I have this on the back here, and I might have to take that off, but I like the additional support that the guns offered for the base of the heel. That being said, the ratchet, you can see how this works, for the rocker, and it came out in the other one too, is right there. Now, that's going to be a solid ankle rocker, so that's nice. And then the tilt is here on the ball peg, and you don't get much out of that with the boots on. With the boots off, you get a little bit more. And then you have these toe hinges, and they work fine depending on if you want the feet collapsed or together. Let's take a look at the back. So there it is from the back, and of course, as you can see, pieces have come undone and stuff from being tabbed in while manipulating it, but pretty clean. So there he is with Feral Rex. Now that's Feral Rex at his smallest setting. So definitely, and Feral Rex at his smallest setting was fairly in line with traditional TFC releases. So he's a bit bigger than most TFC releases. And there he is with Warbotron's Computron. So that should answer the question for scaling for this guy. He definitely fits in with what I consider to be Wave 2 of the third-party combiners. Wave 1 being Hercules and Uranus, Feral Rex. Wave 2 being the more Warbotron Transformission approach. Wave 3 being the Hasbro Devastator scale, and then Wave 4 being the Toy World Devastator scale. So this is where he fits in with the boots. Without the boots, he probably fits in with the Feral Rex, so at least there's some versatility there in terms of display. And there he is with a Masterpiece car and a Chug car. So I personally think that he works with either. It all kind of depends on how you see scale, but Toy World scale has kind of ruined me in terms of how I see it. So it's not necessarily my favorite approach, but I can still justify it. If you imagine that the limbs are about the size of the Carbots from the Masterpiece line, then they would turn into about the limb size of a Masterpiece Carbot. So therefore, a Masterpiece Carbot should come up to about the knee, without any mass shifting or anything. So I think that it works either way, but obviously looks more impressive and intimidating next to a Chug scale bot. So let's build the weapon. So you need this sword and this sword with the sharp angle there, and then you just basically put them together like, you know, and then you have this other matching sword to this one, and you just install that on the other side, and we'll set that aside. More swords. And you do the same basic thing. You take this one, you take this one. There's little pegs on this one. This one, the sword is on the outside of the silver one. And then you install this one on the opposite side. Then you want to take this stuff, take one piece out and install these in the bottom. And then you want this to go back into... Now, take this one with the points up, plug that in. You take these two curlicue pieces and you have to line it up with this right there. There it is. Same for the other side. Which gets you that. And then lastly, you take this and slide that in. So you get a big old sword. And you can adjust the handle. Let me back out a little bit. You know, so it's not too ridiculous. Final thoughts wise, what an interesting release overall. I think this is going to be one of those releases that people look back on and kind of talk about discussion wise in the sense of the history of the hobby. So, to be honest, fair, true to myself, etc., I think this is probably TFC's best combiner. I know that sounds like a compliment, but wait for it. Unfortunately, it took them a lot of releases to kind of get here. And unfortunately for them, and subsequently for us, it's kind of too late to the party. Most of the combiners for the scales of bigger robot collectors like myself has kind of changed and evolved. Now, that's not to say that this doesn't work well for the chug collector. I think it still does. But I'm not sure how many chug collectors are going to take a risk on this, being as though Hasbro seems to be pumping out Combiner Wars kind of still to this day. We got Predacons coming now, you know? So I think it's realistic to assume that we might one day get Zeacons from Hasbro. So I think this is the best of this scale combiner that we've seen from TFC. I know it's not their last, but in a way, Road Caesar aside, I think it might be the last one that people care about. I would be interested to see if in the future, you know, like they have Terracons coming. I'll be interested to see if people actually get involved with that one. I'm passing on that one. And I've bought most of the TFC combiners, so I just find it very peculiar. Now, let's get down, well, I don't know if I want to talk a little bit more about that or not, but maybe we'll circle back to it if something else comes to mind. Let's talk about the nuts and bolts of this guy on his own, standalone, without thinking about kind of the direction that the hobby is going. The positives. The limbots all stick together very well. They're very solid with the exception of tentacles, and that's mainly the tentacles, which is a fancy way of saying tentacles. But the arms and the other leg all hold together extremely solid, which is nice, and so does the core. I love the color palette kind of across the board. I think it works really well. I think it's very reminiscent of the G1. All of the joints hold up fairly well. I know he can't hold his legs out straight or whatever, but like I don't think that's really an issue. And the legs go out to the side the whole way. I'm not sure if I covered that, but now I've got them all posed, and that's how he's going on the shelf, so sorry. Take my word for it, they go out to the side a fair distance. I also think you can use these instead of knee pads as kind of thigh covers. So there's that option as well, and I think that I do like that a bit better. But yeah, overall, I think he cleans up very well, and I think he's pretty solid. Not 100% solid, and we're going to get there. Now let's talk about the negatives. The negatives are his weapons. Now that sword is gnarly and it's super awesome. However, it is too big. It's too big for him. Like it's cumbersome for him to hold. It's like he can hold it, no problem, and he can even hold it out. Like with the with the weight, it will be supported, but it's too big. It doesn't look proportionate. It would have been better if they would have kind of thought of it more as a staff instead of a sword. The other issue is that the gun of the 6th bot is too heavy for his arm to hold. His arm just won't hold it. It collapses. I think I showed you guys that when we had them together initially, but you know, that's a no-go. He's also a little wobbly in the hips. He has a tendency to lean forward. Now, I guess this kind of circles back to my initial discussion. With Toy World and now Zeta kind of following suit in terms of, we don't want to get into that story right now, but that parts forming element, it kind of took that out of it. Now, he's not as bad as some of the other ones are, but I kind of don't have the tolerance, personally, for wobbly combiners anymore after the Toy World experience. Like, in my head, I'm just like, okay, well, I see that it's fixable, so let's just fix it, ladies and gents. And this doesn't really fix it. That's not to say it's bad. There's plenty that are worse. It's fine, but it is a bit wobbly to and fro. Also, the way that the shoulders connect, it probably should have definitely been dropped down instead of pull up to connect the arm bots to the shoulders. That would have been an easy fix for a problem that this guy does tend to have. But before we get down to my recommendations, let's circle back to the 6 spot that forms the gun. That doesn't look great, does it? And I don't know what else to do with it. In order to have it displayed on a stand, I'd have to 86 the boots, but I'm happy with how the boots fix the proportions of the bots, so I'm kind of in a tough spot. So he kind of has to awkwardly hold it like this until I ultimately figure out a way to display him better or differently. So, for the people that are watching this review months or perhaps years after the release of this thing, I am speaking to you from the past. Buy 5. Don't buy 6 when they're on clearance at BBTS. But that's not to say that I don't recommend the set, because I do if you're still in for this line scale-wise with your collection, because it ultimately does work. I don't think you'll find it any more frustrating than some of the other ones that you have in your collection, and I think it looks good, and all of the limbs, with the exception of the tentacles on tentacles, are very solid. So I do recommend it. Just think long and hard about buying all 6. Think long and hard about the direction of your collection and what scale and size you are headed in and where you want your collection to end up. It's not bad, it's good. It may just be one of those things where it's a bit too little and a bit too late. That being said, I still do recommend it. Just be aware of the issues. There are plenty, but it's not the worst that we've seen in this scale. It's definitely not the worst that we've seen from this company. Before I get out of here, shout out to GCI Toys. That is where I bought most of this set from. I've had nothing but good experiences over there. He's helped me out a lot. We're getting ready to talk about sacrifices he's even made for me. So definitely check him out. The link's in the description. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care. So let me do my best to try to tell you this story. And I don't have all the details, but I think this is interesting from a number of perspectives, one of those being the new song for this year, which is called Smoke and Mirrors. But before we get into it, I want to say that this Saturday, I'm going to have a sit-down Saturday, but it's going to not be your traditional sit-down Saturday. It's going to be a stand-up Saturday. It's going to be a little bit of a twist. I'm at TFCon in 2 weeks. A lot of times people miss me at TFCon. They want to come up, shake hands, have a bit of a chat. I'm all for it. I have a stand at TFCon. They want to maybe buy something or whatever, and they miss me. They don't understand the circumstances. So, in order to kind of get around that, circumvent that, and do a little bit of promotion for myself, I'm going to have a little bit of a show and tell of products that will be available from me at TFCon in Reston, Virginia on September 30th and October 1st. Now, let's get to the story. So, GCI Toys had the prototype of the Zeta Whirlwind figure, the Vortex. And I contacted them, and I have a rapport, and I said, look, I see you got it. Is it possible I could take a look at it? And he said, yeah, no problem, straight away. Sent it right to me. And I reviewed it. And I recommended it. In spite of seemingly the whole world hating on it, I recommended it because I see the potential for where it's headed. I sent it back, and I asked, maybe a couple weeks later, if there was any chance of getting the Blast-Off, because the Blast-Off was making its rounds in the review world. I figured there might be a chance of getting the Blast-Off as well. And he told me that that was not going to be possible. So of course I asked why. And he said that someone in America complained to his distributor overseas about me having that prototype and taking a look at it, a prototype that I recommended. As a result, his distributor, I guess, punished him by not giving him any more of the prototypes to take a look at, and by putting an embargo on products to him. So he had to get the Tentakill, or 1,000 kills, which was from the same distributor from somewhere else. Now, like I said in that video, I could have easily just bought it from some other place and been like, sorry, man, and he would have understood, because he's a pretty understanding guy, and I understand his business, that he's trying to sell toys, and he understands my business, that I'm trying to have a successful YouTube channel. So he couldn't knock what I'm doing in the same way that I can't knock what he's doing. But that's not what I did. What I did was just wait patiently for him to get it, respond to all the PMs and YouTube comments and emails about where is the CFC Poseidon review, and say I will get it as soon as I can and take a look at it as soon as I can. So ultimately, at the end of the day, GCI was punished because they allowed me to take a look at a figure that I ended up recommending to an audience that seemingly wasn't interested in it. Now, I do business with GCI. And there's a reason for that. I do business with 215. There's a reason for that. I do business with Titan 1. There's a reason for that. I do business with a handful of companies or distribution companies in America, and there are reasons for that. GCI isn't the only person to get in trouble over a review that I've done. 215 has caught heat before over reviews that I have done, and they have stuck with me. Loyalty means a lot to me. It is paramount to me. Which brings the other X factor in, and that is that someone, or some entity, or some group of people contacted a distributor overseas and complained about me having a test shot, and maybe not them? Or maybe it's just personal to me, I don't know. But karma has a way of sorting itself out, and I'll leave it in karma's hands. But that is why this review took so long to come out, as opposed to the previous ones, which were fairly quick. Smoke and mirrors, my friends. But don't worry, I'm bringing the Windex and napkins.